ahead, Frank.
The large LCD televisions on display were showing a press conference being held by the governor of Tokyo. Hana might learn something new about the case. He decided to watch the broadcast.
Nolan, go ahead.
Working closely with the administration, we are keeping a careful eye on the situation as it develops.
The governor's expression was solemn as he spoke. The moment he finished his statement, the reporters bombarded him with questions.
Justin?
This seems to be similar to the bioterrorist attack on Kasumi Saeki 2 years ago. Is there any possible connection?
Frank?
What countermeasures do we have in the event that Shibuya is the target of bioterrorism? The governor was visibly disconcerted.
If this does turn out to be a bioterrorist attack, we will establish emergency shelters with large-scale quarantine station at Yokoi Park. However, there are still many details that remain unknown.
The politician was clearly struggling to maintain his composure.
Jules?
Can you comment on the rumors we're hearing that Shibuya might be blockaded off?
Don't be ridiculous!
The governor barked.
What outlet are you with? Are you trying to start a panic when we don't even know all the details? Besides, it wouldn't even be possible to blockade the whole of Shibuya.
The press conference continued. The governor and the reporters locked in a belligerent back and forth. Hana left the electronics store and headed for the cafe where Rumi and Shizuo were waiting. He had to tell them both to get far away from Shibuya. The Café Lautrec seemed quiet when Kano arrived. Shizuo was sitting alone. Kano scanned the establishment, but didn't see Rumi anywhere. One of the staff greeted him.
Jules?
Welcome. Just one, sir?
No, I'm meeting someone, actually.
Of course, sir.
The hostess smiled and then went on her way. Shizuo was glaring at him. Kana walked over to him and bowed deeply.
It's a pleasure to meet you, sir. I'm Shinya Kano. Frank.
You look like even more of a knuckle-dragger than I thought. Shizuo maintained his appraising stare. Rumi had something she needed to do, so she stepped away for a while, he said after a long moment. Kano sat down across from him. There was a laptop computer open on the table. A waitress came by to take Kano's order, so he asked for an iced coffee.
What are you using the computer for?
Kano asked. I'm on the internet. Shizuo's voice was low and gruff.
This cafe has an internet connection? May as well start a little small talk.
So what? Again, Shizuo glared at Kano.
I just...
The words wouldn't come.
No, actually, this is no time to be making idle chit-chat.
If they got infected with the virus, Rumi and Shizuo might die.
Look. Please. You need to leave Shibuya right away.
Shizuo's face contorted with confusion. What are you talking about? Why? Kano wasn't sure if he should tell the truth or not. He was strictly prohibited from discussing a case with anyone outside the department. As a former policeman himself, Shizuo ought to understand full well the secrecy of an investigation required. But it wasn't like he'd just up and leave town without a good reason.
Please listen.
Kano said.
There's a risk of a bioterrorist attack. Listen, there's a risk of...
What's that?
What I mean is risk of...
Shizuo pounded his fist on the table. Spit it out! Kano just couldn't say it. It didn't matter who he was talking to. He couldn't make himself leak the details of an ongoing investigation. Besides, there was no guarantee a bioterrorist attack would actually happen. If they could just find and secure Maria Osawa before she went symptomatic. Does this have something to do with the case you're working?
Huh?
You telling me to leave Shibuya, does that have something to do with your case?
Yes.
Kano admitted. So why don't you run off with Rumi then? Shizuo's tone was frank.
Well, I mean...
When Kano didn't have an answer handy, Shizuo let out a single, heavy sigh. Is your work important to you? He asked. Kano hesitated. Is it more important than Rumi?
Well...
Again, Shizuo cut Kano off as he waffled over how to answer. Me, I used to put my work before my family. There was no question in my mind that combating society's ills and solving cases was worth any price. And because of that, I did some pretty reckless things. Almost wound up dead more than once. Shizuo paused, a forlorn look in his eyes. My wife did nothing but worry about me. So much that I didn't even realize when she'd worried herself sick. I was so caught up in my work that I wasn't even there for her when she finally passed away. It was all so very absurd of me. The waitress came by and set Kano's iced coffee on the table. It sat there, untouched, until Shizuo looked at it pointedly. With a tiny nod, Kano brought the cup to his lips. The bittersweet liquid was a balm to his parched throat. I told Rumi the same story, Shizuo continued. But I didn't tell her how absurd it was. I told her that her father only did what he had to do. He took a sip from his glass of water. Rumi, She's very much like her mother used to be. Their personalities are almost identical. And I don't want her to suffer the same way my wife did. Shizuo's fist clenched in his lap. What was it that made you become a detective in the first place? He asked.
Well, at first, I got the job because I thought it would make Rumi happy. And I guess also because I thought it would make you like me, sir.
It was the truth, but Shizuo simply chuckled. If your goal is to get me to like you, you may as well give up now.
I'm sorry, sir. I can't do that.
Are you this stubborn around Rumi? Shizuo grumbled.
I love your daughter, sir. I want to keep her safe, to make her happy.
And why is that?
Whenever I think about her, it just feels so amazing. I'm sure that you or anyone can empathize with that. Everyone has someone that they want to protect who makes them feel that good.
It's an admirable thing, wanting to be a detective, protect the happiness of the people. But that doesn't mean you need to ignore your own happiness in the process.
What you said may be true, sir. Earlier today, my partner was stabbed. And today's his wife's birthday.
Shizuo arched his brow. Is he going to make it?
We're not sure yet. Last I knew, he was in critical condition.
This is why I keep saying that the life of a detective is... Shizuo's words trailed off into a lamenting murmur. Even so, Kana was unmoved.
Dictum number 1. Never lose sight of what you're supposed to protect. Ever.
What's that?
Something that a senior detective I admire very much said. It's the fundamental guiding principle I stuck to as a detective. I was wrong about the real meaning behind it. My partner was stabbed. There are people I want to rescue. So much has happened, and now I finally understand what those words mean. When you see someone in trouble, you help them. That's not something a good detective does. That's something a good person does.
Hana took a good, long look at Shizuo's face. He had surprised himself, finding the words to speak his feelings so clearly, and he wondered what effect it had on the older man.
I'm sure that, from your perspective as my future father-in-law, my being a detective means that I'm putting my life on the line. But that's not entirely true. I can only be myself. This is the kind of person I am. I care about helping people. If I were a baker or a brewer or bookseller, I would still act the same way.
You're being ridiculous. A baker and a detective don't assume anywhere near the same risks.
I suppose that's true.
Kano fussed with his hair sheepishly. Shizuo grumbled. I think I see what kind of man you are now. He sounded oddly defeated. Which is why now is no time to just futz around. Kano sat up straighter at Shizuo's weighty tone. A detective needs more than just passion. A detective can't solve all his problems with sheer determination alone. But at the same time, he needs more than just the ability to coldly assess a situation. He needs the conviction to stick to a case when it might otherwise seem prudent to give up. There was something new in Shizuo's expression now, and a gleam in his eyes that hadn't been there before. Kano almost felt like he was being sermonized to by a senior officer. You got that. You need a cool mind, but a fiery spirit. A detective without both of those, well, is worth nothing.
Do you mind if I write that down in my notebook here?
Look, Shizuo said, sounding suddenly embarrassed. Aren't you in a hurry? Don't you have to get back to your case?
Yes, sir, please. I need you and your daughter to leave Shibuya right away.
Yeah, I hear you. Kano conjured up Rumi's face in his mind. There was a chance he might never see her again. He forced the thought away as best he could. By the way, if I may ask, Shizuo said, what was it about Rumi that made you fall in love with her?
What? Where's this coming from all of a sudden?
Was it her looks?
No, it wasn't just that.
Kano found himself tongue-tied again.
I mean, she is pretty cute. You know, this is my own daughter.
I mean, she is pretty cute, even if this is my own daughter I'm talking about. Shizuo shocked him by grinning from ear to ear.
Well, yes, she sure is.
Hana replied,
But it's more than just that. She's also very sweet and kind-hearted.
Ah, she is, isn't she?
Yeah, she really is.
For the first time, Kano and Shizuo smiled at one another. You're a man who lets his emotions show on his face, Shizuo said. And for a detective, that's not so bad.
Thank you, sir.
Kano said. He bowed to Shizuo as he stood up from his seat.
Now at least I was...
Never lose...
Oh, is that you?
I think that was me.
Okay.
Never lose sight of what you're supposed to protect, huh? I like that. Wise words indeed. Kano turned to look back, and then bowed deeply to Shizuo one last time.
The ability to clearly assess a situation.
Kano knew what he needed to do. There was one thing that was nagging him. No matter how hard he thought about it, it still didn't add up. Why would Tateno let Al-Karawan go free? He needed to get back to the precinct and get the truth from Al-Karawan firsthand. As he walked along, he considered what he did know about the facts of the case. Just what sort of plan had Alphard put into motion here? It seemed that Tanaka and Osawa held the keys to understanding it. There had been relay handoffs of the phony attaché case, a relay that Tanaka had been complicit in. Then there was Hitomi missing, carrying the antiviral. Osawa had confirmed that himself. Before the news was shared with the Osawas, the members of the investigation team quietly briefed Detective Kajiwara. Osawa and I sat on the sofa on the far side of the room, watching. They could see Kajiwara go pale. He wiped the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief several times. Bad news, Osawa thought.
Mr. Osawa, ma'am.
Kajiwara shuffled his way over to them at last.
We've just gotten word from headquarters.
He hesitated, ominously. Osawa braced himself. Please, let's hear it.
It would seem that your daughter Maria is safe.
What? Osawa felt an unexpected surge of relief. You mean it?
The case has been solved?
Added I. For a moment, they almost sounded like a happily married couple. It was only the stern look on Kajiwara's face that gave them pause.
However, as of yet, we do not have her in custody.
I'm not sure I understand, Osawa said.
You know she's alive, but you don't have her? How?
Deep furrows appeared in Kajiwara's forehead.
I'm sorry, sir. The information we've received from up top is complicated. We've confirmed that she was able to escape confinement. It's just...
The detective gave every appearance of holding something back. If there's something you need to tell us, then just say it, Osawa told him.
It would seem that Maria has been infected with a virus.
Infected? Osawa felt as if a taloned claw had just clutched his heart.
It's not one I've ever heard of before, but... apparently, it's called the Uwa virus.
Osawa's vision went dark. He felt as if he plunged into a black void of despair.
Darling.
I asked raspily. She didn't need to put her fears into words. Osawa felt them just as plainly in his own gut.
You're an expert on virology, aren't you, Mr. Osawa?
Kajiwara said.
Are you familiar with this Uwa virus?
Osawa held up a hand to forestall further questions. There was no time for that. How many hours ago was she infected? He demanded.
I wasn't told that much. Is that important to know, sir?
Depending on when Maria was infected, we may or may not still be... Osawa trailed off abruptly as the reality of the situation struck home. This wasn't the same as when Hitomi had been infected. Right now, there was no way of getting Tanaka's cooperation, which meant there was no way of accessing the antiviral storage. In other words, getting the cure to Maria would be impossible. Osawa's head swam. Detective Kajiwara, I beg of you. Your people need to catch Tanaka as soon as possible. I can't share the details, but if you don't, something terrible is going to happen. Just then, Kajiwara's cell phone rang. He picked up quickly.
What did you say?
The detective's shout shattered the anxious silence that had fallen. I shuddered visibly at the outburst. Kajiwara nodded sharply, still listening. More creases formed in his forehead.
Understood. I'll let them know.
He hung up. All eyes were on him.
That was headquarters.
Osawa swallowed the lump in his throat. He could feel himself quaking all over.
A minivan we believe belonged to the syndicate exploded near Jinan in Shibuya. A body was found amongst the burning wreckage of the vehicle.
Who was it? Osawa interjected. Tell me! Please don't let it be Maria. Please don't let it be Hitomi. Kajiwara took a breath before speaking.
We've conclusively identified the remains as Mr. Tanaka's.
The cry was visceral, almost bird-like. Osawa looked around in surprise. It was I.
It's not true! You're lying!
Her shrill screams reverberated through the room. Osawa felt like he wanted to scream too. With Tanaka dead, there was no way to get the antiviral. Which meant that Maria was going to die.
Jules.
Eventually, I mustered up the energy to start walking around town, heading nowhere in particular. The billboard outside of a department store displays a poster of some female musician. She must be pretty popular, because lots of passerby stop to take a good look. I catch sight of little Hana in front of the billboard. She's showing something to a woman there. Some colorful sheets of paper. The woman looks a lot like the musician in the poster. Moreover, I have the feeling I've seen her someplace before. Where could I have seen her? Man, having amnesia is really a pain in the ass. I have no way of knowing whether I've forgotten something or had no memory of it in the first place. The woman looks through the papers Hana held out to her, nodding approvingly at each one. And I can hear her murmur with admiration. Hana! Hana! I wave as I scamper on over to her. As I do, the woman abruptly hurries off. Hey, we meet again, I say. Hana just gives me a bored look. Who was that just now? I ask. I don't know. Hana quickly gathers up her belongings and starts walking briskly away. Oh, hey, wait up! I call out. The girl ignores me. She's moving at a jog now, heading from Spanish Hill towards Kawandori. She steps out onto Kawandori. She trips and falls down hard. The contents of her bag spill out onto the road. Whoops! Catching up to her, I gather up some of the fallen pages. What's this? There are poems written on the colored paper. A look of embarrassment crosses Hana's face, and she snatches the pages out of my hands.
Don't touch those! Those are for sale!
For sale?
I'm selling poems that I wrote.
Oh, wow! That's incredible! She looks surprised by the compliment.
Incredible? My friends at school said they were dumb.
That's not true. I only saw a little just now, but I thought it was a really good poem.
You're just saying that. here in Shibuya for weeks trying to sell these, but the only person who's bought one was that lady just now.
Hana lets out a mournful sigh. Well, what are you out here selling poems for anyway?
I thought maybe it'd help pay back our debts.
Huh? Okay, that's not something I expect to hear from a little kid.
My dad's in real deep.
She continues. The topic makes me think of Mr. Yanagishita. Guess today's my day for meeting people mirrored in debt.
And I'm only in elementary school, so I can't get a part-time job.
I'm impressed. She's so brave. She's maybe a little hard to approach, but she is just a kid after all.
She's so brave, I just want to give her a hug. Oh, Hana!
I hear a strange wailing call from behind me. Startled, I turn around to see Mr. Toyama standing there, tears streaming from his eyes.
Hana, I'm so sorry. I know you were trying so hard to.
Toyama rushes up to the girl. It's quite the emotional father-daughter reunion. Or at least, that's what it looks until... Or at least, that's how it looks until Hana slaps her father across the face with her bundle of papers.
What was that for?
Don't you give me that! I'm sick of all this running around!
She delivers several more well-placed smacks with her little craft project.
Okay.
Toyama says at last.
I know you're upset, but I have to ask you for just one thing. Think we'll see about getting through the day, yeah?
Okay. But just one.
I can't help but find this ornery interaction kind of charming. You two get along really well, don't you? I say.
Yep.
Nope.
The two give simultaneous contradictory replies. English. Then Hana sullenly starts to walk off, with Toyama tottering off after her. It's such a weird little sight, but I can't help but laugh. Well, later then. Further along Kowandori, I come across a car on the roadside that's spectacularly aflame. A group of onlookers surrounds it in a confused uproar. It seemed almost unreal, like I'm looking at a set for a TV show or something. I stand there, staring into the flames. What's that? I can see something. The raging heat makes the air shimmer. The scent of dry sand fills my nose. A gust of searing wind tugs at my hair. Where am I? Decaying roads. Decaying houses. A decaying city. And the people who live there. People who live. People who live. People who live. There's someone by my side. Someone is with me watching all of this. It's a girl. The person with me is a girl, slightly younger than me. She says something to me. Hana is me. Cat's cradle. That's my voice now. Cat's cradle. Whose voice was that? What's going on? Who am I talking to? Yeah. Cat's cradle. I'm showing someone how to do a cat's cradle with string. But who? Who am I showing how to do a cat's cradle? Kanan. The word Kanan echoes in my head. Kanan? I utter the name aloud. The images floating through my mind are beginning to break up and vanish. But I feel like, for a brief moment at least, I caught hold of the edges of some of my lost memories. That's right. Kanan. As soon as I say it, I'm filled with a powerful sense of duty. There's something I'm responsible for, something that I needed to do. And if I don't, this Kanan person is going to be in grave danger. Calm down. Just calm down. I'm pleading with myself right now. Fighting the impulse to take off running. If I did, where would I go? I have no idea what my destination or my goal even is. Please. Please, remember something. Please. Please. I gaze out at the flames, practically praying now.
Emilio.
Don't move.
A voice hisses in my ear, and I feel something hard press against my back. I don't need to turn around to recognize whose voice it is. I thought you said you didn't have any business with...
I did a little thinking.
Says the man with the cane, slowly.
About how I might lure out Hitomi Osawa. See? I'm going to use you as bait.
Go ahead, Frank.
Hana was starting to form a vague picture of what Alphard was up to. If the mastermind's goal was to acquire the antiviral, then obtaining the cooperation of Osawa and Tanaka was vital to that plan. After all, their fingerprint verification was required to physically access the drug. In order to overcome that hurdle, Alphard had presumably managed to win over Tanaka somehow, and had then kidnapped Marie Osawa to provide leverage against her father. No doubt that was how they'd gotten Hitomi to take the antiviral with her to Hachiko. While the police were distracted by following the attaché case, Alphard would then take the antiviral from Hitomi. That was the general plan as far as Kano could surmise. Then, a call from Kuze came in over the wireless.
You've identified the body found inside the blown-up minivan.
Kano's hand tingled as it gripped the wireless.
Mamoru Tanaka, male, 40 years old. An employee of Okoshi Pharmaceutical. Positive ID was obtained from the subject's personal belongings.
What?
Kano gasped. If Tanaka was dead, it would now be almost impossible to access the antiviral drug in the laboratory. At this point, the only antiviral they had any chance of obtaining was whatever Hitomi was carrying. Hana thought back to what Stanley had said earlier.
Isn't he?
Yeah, Stanley.
Even if we get later to safety, the mastermind is in possession of the Uo virus. If they want to, they can unleash a bioterrorist attack on Shibuya at any time. To put it bluntly, the lives of every man, woman, and child in the city are in their hands.
No.
A chill ran down Kano's spine. If someone did release the Uwa virus, there would be no way to stop it from spreading. If Alphard really was planning a bioterror attack, Shibuya would well and truly become a city of the dead. He couldn't help but feel that the whole department was playing right into Alphard's hands. Kano staggered, physically stricken by the realization of how terrifying a foe they were up against. Minorikawa turned to see a man in a suit approach him, flashing his badge. So, a detective with questions for him, huh?
How about you answer a few questions for me? Was this an accident or an attack? Oh, whoops, that was your line.
How about you answer a question for me? Was this an accident or an attack?
We still don't know many details.
Let me rephrase that for you. This is a major incident.
Minorikawa exclaimed.
Huh?
The detective looked pretty flummoxed.
I've been around the block a few times, and I know all your police PR lingo. And when you start talking about the details, that is 100% indicative of a major incident.
Brushing aside Minorikawa's remark, the detective tried another question.
Did you happen to notice anything unusual prior to the explosion?
Unusual?
Minorikawa thought back to the moments before the minivan blew up.
Now that you mention it, I think I heard a cell phone ringtone?
The detective tilted his head.
A ringtone?
No, never mind, forget that. There's no way the ringtone on someone's phone would be audible through all of that.
Minorikawa struck the thought from his own mind as he said it. In all likelihood, he associated the ringtone and explosion simply because one had happened right before the other.
Hana.
A large, statured Caucasian man had called out to the detective. Evidently, the detective's name was Kano.
Thank you for your cooperation.
He said with a bow. Then he ran over to the foreigner.
Jules, I think.
Mr. Minorikawa!
Minorikawa turned at a female voice behind him. He found Miku standing there. She looked like she'd been crying.
Miku, about earlier.
He trailed off, searching for an apology.
It's okay. That doesn't matter right now.
Miku looked around the scene. Minorikawa followed her gaze.
Something big went down there.
He said.
I know!
She exclaimed.
The explosion! I saw it happen with my own eyes!
You what?
Miku looked around nervously.
Are you alright?
He asked her.
You're not hurt, are you?
I'm okay. My ears are still ringing a bit, is all.
Good. So, what did you see at the time of the explosion?
Miku assumed a thoughtful expression.
There was a girl who was running toward the minivan. And then I think I saw this other Middle Eastern girl suddenly make a dive for her. And then the van just exploded.
Wait, hold on.
Minorikawa said.
So if I'm getting this right, it sounds like this Middle Eastern girl saved the girl who was running up to the van?
Miku nodded. Just then, Minorikawa's phone chimed. He'd received an email. It was from Chiaki.
Mr. Mino, are you still working on your copy?
He checked his watch. At this point, the 4 o'clock deadline was barely 20 minutes away. Nonetheless, he decided to stay at the bomb scene. He could definitely smell a scoop here. He was sure of it. Even if he couldn't get his 6 pages done by 4, landing a major scoop should be enough to persuade the loan company. Minorikawa jotted his phone number down and handed it to Miku.
I'll make things up to you,
He said.
Give me a call later.
Miku took the scrap of paper, puzzled.
If you're looking for an Aiki Jujutsu dojo, I know a few.
That's Minorikawa, I think. Go ahead, Nolan.
If you're looking for an Aiku Jujutsu dojo, I know a few.
At that, her face lit up. Minorikawa decided to process the scene for clues. As he wandered around, he caught sight of Detective Kano and his Caucasian colleague heading down an alley.
What's that I smell? Something pretty damn fishy.
If they were slipping away for a private conversation, maybe there was some way he could listen in. Minorikawa hurried into one of the buildings that bordered the alley. He looked around and found a public bathroom upstairs on the alley side of the building. Hoping beyond hope, he slipped up to the bathroom window. Voices outside. He held his breath and listened.
Those international criminals you mentioned?
Those international criminals you mentioned?
Hana's words were faint, but he could make them out. Minorikawa did a little fist pump.
Correct. Roughly 8 hours ago, they infected Maria Osawa with the Uwa virus. Then they let her loose somewhere in Shibuya.
Hold on. What Ua you mean?
The discussion involved some terms Minorikawa wasn't familiar with. He focused all of his mental energy on what the two were saying.
This is a killer virus with a 100% mortality rate once it takes hold.
Minorikawa muttered to himself. The shock caused him to unclench the fist he didn't realize he'd made. This wasn't just an interesting conversation. It was monumental.
It is an incubation period of 12 hours. In another 4 hours, Minorikawa will go symptomatic. After that, she'll begin spreading the virus through the city.
It's capable of airborne transmission.
If you don't administer Kenji Osawa's antiviral before she develops symptoms,
Yes.
everyone in Shibuya is going to die.
Minorikawa felt goosebumps rise all over his body. If they were talking about a virus and a Kenji Osawa, then they could only mean that Kenji Osawa. He recalled what Osawa had said earlier about the power balance of the world being at stake. There was no doubt about it. This was a tremendous scoop.
Well then, we need to find Maria Osawa and get the antivirus for her as soon as possible.
Just calm down. There's much a story that
Thanks, Morikawa.
is a random guy.
Random guy. Emilio.
Aw, it's starting to leak out.
The door swung open loudly and someone came barging into the bathroom. It was Yanagishita.
Why him again? Why here of all places?
Oh, I'm leaking here.
Yanagishita was on the verge of hysterics. His voice must have been audible outside. Kano and his companion went to take their discussion elsewhere.
They've just been getting to the good part. You son of a bitch!
Enraged, Minorikawa grabbed Yanagishita and tossed him to the floor.
I'm leaking.
Shut your mouth.
He put all of his strength into an ankle hold and gave it a good twist.
Ah!
Yanagishita wailed.
Ah!
Minorikawa left the idiot blubbering in the bathroom and hurried out of the building. He hadn't heard the whole discussion, but he had a scoop on his hands anyway. This would be a tremendous score for Heaven Publishing, enough to let the company rebuild. He was certain of it.
I'm the one saying it. It's gotta be true.
As he ran along, Minorikawa tried to plan his next steps. First, he had to get back to the editing office. He'd explain the situation to the people from the loan company. Then he'd go find that paperwork for Osawa and have Chiaki check his copy. But then, after that... Okay, so he still had a lot of things he needed to do. He swatted himself on both cheeks to get himself psyched up. His phone rang. It was Chiaki.
Mr. Mino. Something terrible has happened.
Chiaki's voice was a broken yelp.
Well, calm down.
Over on Con, don't worry. This minivan exploded!
Yeah. I'm well aware. Thanks to that, I've got a big scoop that...
Yaki cut him off.
Just now, I got a call from Mr. Toyama's daughter, Hana.
This time, Minorikawa waited for her to finish. He had a sinking feeling.
She said that Mr. Toyama was in there. It was a suicide.
Minorikawa's knees buckled.
Tell me you're joking.
No, I mean, the van explosion is all over the news. And Hana was in tears on the phone, and Mr. Mino? Mr. Mino, are you still there?
Toyama had killed himself? Minorikawa felt the energy drain from his body. Achi could hear ambulance and police sirens wailing on the main road. He looked down at Hitomi, slumped on a park bench beside him.
You're sure you're not hurt?
He asked quietly, offering her a bottle of water.
I'm okay.
Hitomi took a sip from the bottle.
Thanks. I think I've managed to calm down some.
Some of the color had finally returned to her face.
So,
Achi began hesitantly.
inside that minivan,
Is this Hitomi?
Yeah.
I think that's you.
Maria wasn't in there.
There was a relief in her voice, but also a note of pathos.
I got a look in through the windshield. There was a man laid out in the back seat, but nobody else.
The dark cloud lifted from Achi's face.
So it wasn't your sister?
No, I didn't see his face. Just that he was wearing a business suit.
Achi felt the tension ebbing from his body.
That's good, then. that it wasn't her. I'd been worried.
It was a shame about the poor devil who had been killed, though. Who was it? And why had he been there?
So, I guess now we're out of leads.
Hitomi
So-
murmured.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
So, I guess now we're out of leads.
Hitomi murmured. She hung her head.
We could try the surveillance center again for now.
Achi said.
It'll probably give us better odds of finding your sister than just walking around.
I guess you're right. Shall we then?
Hold on.
Achi had a sudden flash of inspiration.
My house is a lot closer from here. Maybe I should ask my dad if we can check the cameras from his home.
You can do that?
We have the same system at our house. I'm sure my dad will let us use them.
The two got up and headed for Endo Electronics. Achi decided to let his father know they were coming. He turned on his phone as they walked along. He'd had it off for a while, so he first checked his voicemail. There was one message. Wondering who might have called, he played it back.
Is this Achi and Do's personal cell phone?
Hold on. Nolan, go for it.
Is this Achi Endo's personal cell phone? This is Dr. Saeki from Shibuya Central Hospital.
Achi's expression stiffened. He pressed the phone closer to his ear.
There's been a sudden change in Suzune's condition. I tried calling your home as well, but got no answer.
Achi felt the edges of his vision growing dim.
As your brother, felt really good if you can come to the hospital as soon as possible. It's Achi?
Achi?
Hitomi's voice was full of concern.
Sorry, I just gotta make a call here.
Fingers trembling, Achi dialed his house. The phone rang several times before switching over to the answering machine.
Damn it! Where the hell are you, Dad?
What's wrong?
Hitomi asked.
It's Suzune. It sounds like things have gotten pretty bad.
then we need to get to the hospital right away.
Hitomi said. She sounded as anxious as Achi was.
We can't go yet.
Achi shook his head quietly.
First, we have to save your sister.
Hitomi bristled angrily at that.
What are you talking about?
She grabbed Achi by the arm and shook him.
Right now, you need to be thinking about your sister.
I can't. I made a promise to Suzune. Promise to help people and see things through to the end when something important is on the line.
He struggled to get the words out.
If I break that promise, then I really am no good for her.
But Hitomi didn't look like she was going to back down.
Nolan.
Oi, get back here!
A threatening shout rung out from nearby. Achi looked around, startled, and saw a boy about high school age bolting out from behind a building on a side street. Several slightly older young men were hot on his heels. Achi knew their faces all too well. They were members of SOS. They caught their quarry just before he could make it out onto the main road.
Gotcha, newbie.
So the kid they were after must have been a member too.
Let me go.
Oh, we'll let you go, alright. After you pay up.
One of the young men snatched the boy by the collar and shoved him against the wall of a nearby building.
Ow!
The boy's face scrunched up.
What are you talking about? Panda?
Isn't that that's not carry so wait, do you want me to just do my noise?
Yeah, just a normal voice.
Playing dumb, huh?
Interjected one of the onlookers.
We told ya that members all have to pay monthly dues, yeah? The privilege of getting to call yourself SOS don't come free after all.
Achi felt his blood boil. SOS was trying to pull a shakedown on this new kid under the guise of calling it dues. It would have been unthinkable for them to do something like this back when Achi was running the show.
Hey,
He barked.
let the kid go.
He marched toward the group.
Nolan.
Wait, see Nolan.
I think it's Nolan.
Say what now?
They turned to look, their faces immediately going pale.
Oh, hey, Achi.
Let him go.
Achi focused his glare on the fellow holding the kid until he released his grip.
You guys always going around doing stuff like this?
None of the gang members answered. they merely turned their gazes glumly to the ground.
Hey,
Achi turned to the younger boy.
since when have they been doing this?
But of course, he realized there was no way the newbie would be able to tell him.
Never mind. You can go.
Achi gestured down the main road. The boy was quick to run off. Achi waited until the boy was gone before turning back to the others.
Does Susumu know you're going around and collecting dues like this?
He asked.
Nolan, go for it.
Man, I don't gotta tell you that.
One of them muttered.
Keep going.
Since you deserted.
What'd you say?
Achi leaned in close, getting right in the guy's face. He was met with a defiant sneer.
This ain't the old SOS anymore.
Not the old SOS? Achi thought back to the other gang member he'd run into earlier, with the malicious gleam in his eyes.
That guy. Pretty sure his name was Kiryu?
Back when Achi had been with SOS, he'd have never let a guy like that get away with acting all high and mighty. Suddenly, Achi heard a voice from behind him.
Panda.
Well, well. If it ain't our legendary founder. Yeah.
An instant later, he took a hard blow to the side of the head.
I was just out looking for some small fry, but looks like I landed me a big one.
Achi's head swam, his vision fading in and out. Before he had a chance to recover, something smashed into his knee. He lay crumpled on the ground, unable to retaliate as kicks and punches rained down on him. Even after Achi could no longer move, the beating didn't stop. His ruptured eardrums could barely make out the sound of Hitomi screaming.
Hitomi. Run.
With his final plea silenced before it reached his lips, Achi felt his consciousness battered away. Arriving back at the Shibuya precinct, Kano hurried to the interrogation room. With the investigation currently on hold, he knew that taking any official action would be tricky. If he was going to break through this stalemate, he was going to need Tateno's help. The abduction, the ransom, the attaché case relay, Maria's release, and then Tanaka's death. Maybe Tateno would be able to figure out how all these elements were related. But first, Kano needed to check something for himself. Tateno would never have let Al-Karawan go free. Kano needed the prisoner to set the record straight. Al-Karawan sat in the precinct interrogation room, looking brazen and cocksure. One glance at his face, and Kano was reminded of what had happened to Sasayama. Fresh anger smoldered at the edges of his mind. There were 2 detectives already in the room.
Nolan.
Seems he wasn't made privy to the details.
One of them told Kano.
Panda. Frank.
Sounds like they were following orders, carrying that attaché case around, the other added. Kano sat down across from Al-Karawan.
There's something we'd like to ask you,
He said.
Justin.
We were just paid to do a job. I don't know anything more than that.
His Japanese was imperfect, but he understood the language well enough.
Tell me, how'd you manage to escape from Detective Tateno?
Escape? I didn't.
A faint smile came to Al-Karawan's lips.
He let me go for free.
Liar! Detective Tateno would never do that.
Kano slammed the desk with his fist.
I didn't have handcuffs on, did I? He took them off for me.
This had to be a lie. It's not like there weren't other ways to remove a pair of handcuffs.
And after he took off the handcuffs,
Al-Karawan continued.
he pointed his gun at me.
Cut the crap!
Hana grabbed the prisoner by the collar. But Al-Karawan went on, unperturbed.
He kept the gun pointed at me, but he didn't pull the trigger. So that's when I ran.
Why would Detective Tateno want to shoot you?
Because I saw him.
Saw him? Saw him do what?
Let me tell you something interesting.
Al-Karawan said sardonically.
It was that girl who was carrying the ransom, right?
Hana pictured Hitomi, standing anxiously beside the statue of Hachiko.
That guy Tateno was trying to kill her.
In a fit of rage, Kano drove his fist into Al-Karawan's face. His colleagues rushed to interpose themselves.
Nolan.
Kano, calm down. Knocked to the floor, Al-Karawan gingerly fingered his split lip.
And after after I gave you such good info, too.
He grumbled.
Detective Tateno was assigned to protect Hitomi Osawa.
Hana shouted.
You can't expect me to believe you're rubbish.
He lunged around the table, ready to throw another punch, but his fellow detectives held him back. Al-Karawan looked away indifferently.
It's your Detective Tateno. You should be arresting, not me. That girl is going to get killed.
You need to step in line, pal!
Hana bellowed. Kano! His colleagues shouted. You're the one who needs to step in line. Go and cool off for a bit. Expelled from the interrogation room, Kano immediately pulled out his cell phone and called Tateno's number.
Please pick up.
He clutched his phone tight, pleading under his breath. But Tateno didn't answer. Kano sat down in a chair in the hallway in a bit of a daze. He found himself holding the present Sasayama had gotten for his wife.
I have to do something. Just don't know what I'm supposed to do.
His restlessness gnawed at him like a rabid animal.
Frank, go for it.
Hey, Kano! He looked up to see Kuze standing beside him, his expression grave.
I have an update on Sasayama.
The director began. Kano swallowed the lump in his throat.
It seems the knife went in deep enough to do some organ damage. He's in critical condition.
I see.
Kano bit his lip hard. His handkerchief, red with Sasayama's blood, clung to the wrapping paper of Sasayama's present. Kano peeled it away carefully so as not to tear the paper beneath.
What's that?
Asked Kuze.
Sasayama had me hold on to this for him. It's a present for his wife.
Ah, I see.
I'm sorry, Detective Kuze, Director Kuze. For ignoring your orders.
Kano's eyes remained fixed on the gift as he spoke.
When we get down to it, none of this would have happened if it weren't for me.
Some kind of punishment was surely headed his way for acting alone as he had. He probably wasn't getting out of this one with a simple written apology. But Kuze calmly shook his head.
What happened to Sasayama isn't your fault. Don't blame yourself.
He said.
As far as this case goes, I've been given quite the runaround myself.
There was a rare note of vulnerability in Kuze's voice.
The higher-ups have barely let any information trickle my way. But they're still ordering me around non-stop. It's a real pain in the ass.
Kuze fell silent, ruminating. The quiet lingered between the two men for several moments before he abruptly spoke again.
Alright. I'd like to get your opinion on something. So, Moru Tanaka, who we found in minivan, you know? What you think? Shibuya maybe released his name to the media?
Kuze had slipped into his childish register. He was clearly exhausted. Hana was thrown by the question. It was a rare thing for the director to seek an opinion from a mere junior detective.
It feels like there's something not too normal about one of Kenji Osawa's subordinates dying.
Kuze went on. Kano had the same thought. This felt too intentional to be a coincidence.
So here's the question. Should I get the media involved and try to rush for a resolution? Or should I be more cautious? What would you do?
About releasing the name?
Kano asked. That wasn't such a simple thing to answer. There were so many factors to consider. A tired smile came to Kuze's face.
Don't think about it so hard. This is just so I have a point of reference. Tell me what your gut says.
I think we should hold back for now.
Kuze rumbled.
You still don't know if Mamoru Tanaka was murdered or if he committed suicide.
We still know Mamoru Tanaka was murdered, or if he committed suicide.
Kano pointed out.
We should at least wait until we know that much.
This case had so many loose ends that could lead in dangerous directions. It would pay to be as prudent as possible. Kuze paused for a moment in thought, then nodded.
I see what you mean. Alright then.
Then, without another word, he headed back toward the conference room. On the TV, the governor's press conference was still going on.
Nolan.
I've requested that each of the railroad companies, starting with JR, stop running trains through Shibuya Station until further notice. As far as the roads go, Route 246 has already been closed to traffic.
The executive looked pale as he spoke to the crowd.
Jules.
Is there any possibility of a bioterrorist attack?
Emilio.
What about the people who are still in Shibuya?
The reporters unleashed a barrage of questions. The governor's face scrunched up.
As I've already made clear, this is not a complete blockade. There's nothing to stop anyone from leaving Shibuya on foot.
Justin.
Isn't what you're describing de facto martial law?
It's that one reporter.
Of course not!
The governor snapped.
You should be well aware that martial law is illegal. I couldn't declare it even if I wanted to.
Jules.
If you wanted to. So this is a bioterrorist issue then?
I never said anything of the sort.
The press conference was devolving into chaos. Kana was unsurprised given the circumstances. Still, everyone was doing their best insofar as they knew how,
So why not me?
Hana thought.
It doesn't matter what I do. I just want to be doing something.
Just letting time tick by without trying to take action was more than he could bear. Kano thought about Sasayama's wife and decided to get in touch with her. He called Sasayama's home phone, but nobody picked up. Perhaps she'd gone to the hospital? With that in mind, Kano called up Shibuya Central Hospital and asked them to transfer him to Mrs. Sasayama. After a little while, the woman's voice came through the receiver.
Yes. This is Mrs. Sasayama.
Her voice was thin and reedy.
My name's Shinya Kano. I work your husband on force. What happened?
He didn't know what to say. He couldn't find the words.
I wish I would have been there when he gone to make the arrest.
He blurted out at last.
I should have tried to get there and back him up sooner. If it hadn't been too late.
Trailed off, hoping he hadn't said too much. Sasayama's wife answered in her gentle, quavering voice.
Thank you so much for your concern. I'm glad that my husband is lucky enough to have a colleague like you.
No, I couldn't.
I married a detective, Mr. Kano. I've prepared myself for the possibility that something like this might happen.
But she certainly didn't sound like she was prepared. Kano felt a biting pain in his chest.
Your husband gave me something to hold on to for you. I'd like to give it to you if I can.
Oh? Well, certainly, but I'd like to stay here by his side today, if possible.
Of course. I'll head on over to the hospital myself then. I hope you don't mind if I pay a visit.
Oh, of course not. Of course not. Sorry to trouble you like this. Thank you so much.
Hana hung up, then hurried out of the precinct. As he was making his way toward the hospital, Kano spotted a girl sitting on the pedestrian overpass. She looked like she was on the verge of tears. Concerned, he stopped beside her.
Are you waiting for someone?
He asked. The girl simply bit her lip and said nothing.
Are you lost? Do you need a policeman?
Again, the girl gave no answer.
Where'd you come from?
Kano tried. Still nothing. He had just decided to go and call for a female officer when the girl hesitatingly spoke at last.
Heaven Publishing.
After a little coaxing, she told him where that was. It turned out it was on the way to Shibuya Central Hospital, not too far from where they were now.
How'd that take you there then?
Kano said.
I'm already headed in that direction anyway.
The girl seemed a bit reluctant at first, but eventually she agreed to go with Kano. Kano parted ways with the girl outside the building where Heaven Publishing was located. He noticed that she hesitated to enter at first, but eventually vanished inside. Kano's phone rang as he was about to continue on his way. When he peered at the incoming call display, his heart nearly stopped. There was Tateno's name. Kano quickly pressed the button to accept the call.
Detective Tateno? Detective Tateno, is that you?
There was a whole mountain of things Kano wanted to ask. Just what had he been doing this whole time? Why had he let Al-Karawan go free? And what had happened to Hitomi? But while he was trying to decide what question to pose first, Tateno spoke.
Emilio.
I've secured Maria Osawa.
What?
The word came out as a startled gasp.
Detective Tateno, you have to bring her here ASAP. Right now, she's...
Tateno cut him off.
You need to bring Hitomi Osawa to my location at once.
Hitomi. Osawa? Tateno?
Yes. I heard over the wireless that the man from the U.S. Embassy had her in custody.
Hana hadn't been listening to the most recent wireless traffic. Apparently Stanley had managed to find Hitomi. But what was Tateno getting at here?
Wait, hold on. What for? I mean, why do you need me to bring Hitomi Osawa to you?
There was no reply.
Detective Tateno, answer me. Please.
Tateno replied as if he hadn't heard Kano's questions.
There's an office building in Nanpidai called South Hill. I'll be waiting for you on the rooftop. If you don't bring her, I'll kill Maria.
With that grisly warning, he hung up. Kano's hand went limp. His phone slipped from his grasp and fell to the floor. Kano went to South Hill and Nanpei-dai alone. He hadn't brought Hitomi as Tateno had demanded, nor had he reported the situation to Kuze. First, he wanted to meet with Tateno and find out what was going on. He took the elevator to the 8th floor. After that, he had to take the stairs to the rooftop. As he made his way up the steps, he tried to imagine what Tateno might want with Hitomi. He hadn't noticed anything suspicious about the senior detective in the lead-up to the stakeout at the Scramble. Tateno had seemed like the same man Kano had always revered. So why was he doing this? Kano couldn't think of a reason. Reaching the top of the staircase, he at last stepped out onto the open roof. Time for half-baked conjecture was past. Kano would lay his doubts at Tateno's feet. Then, soon enough, everything would become clear. Inwardly, Kano did his best to convince himself of that. A warm breeze blew against his cheek. He took a look around, but saw no sign of Tateno.
Detective Tateno, where are you?
Getting no response, he began to walk around the rooftop, calling out several more times.
It's Kano! I come as you asked!
Where's Hitomi Osawa?
Kano whirled around when he heard the voice behind him. Tateno stepped into view from behind a water tank. He led with him a young woman, bound and blindfolded.
Why didn't you bring her?
He growled. Kano stared in shock.
Detective Tateno, why are you doing this? Is that really Maria?
Hana responded by removing the young woman's blindfold. With her blindfold removed, Maria slowly opened her eyes. Then, as she gazed past Kano, a panicked look crossed her face.
Jules.
She shot out her arm to point. Hana whirled around in surprise. There was a man on the roof of the building across the way who looked like he was getting ready to jump.
Why now?
Hana thought to himself, but he couldn't just stand idly by while someone committed suicide. He felt a pang of disgust when he saw Tateno take in the situation with an indifferent glance, but make no move to help.
Detective Tateno, I'll be right back.
Hana exclaimed.
We can finish this after.
Without waiting for an answer, he raced for the other building. When he got to the second rooftop, the man was still there, staring down at the ground below.
Don't do anything rash.
Hana warned, hurrying toward him. When the man gave no response, though, Kano quickly halted. The stranger was still several meters away. Kano braced himself, ready to lunge for the man if necessary.
Let's not be hasty. Nobody's gonna be happy if you jump.
Still, the man said nothing, simply gazing out at the sky. Surely he could hear Kano now. The detective continued, keeping his voice low and conversational.
I've got a co-worker. He's one of the most absurdly devoted husbands you could meet. All he does is brag about his wife.
The man continued to ignore him.
He was stabbed in the belly earlier today. He's in a hospital right now, on death's door. He was happy, but now his life might get snatched away from him anyway.
Still, the man appeared unmoved. It was as if the words weren't even reaching him.
Don't you think it's a waste to just go and throw your own life away?
Kano waited for the man to respond. The stranger took a purposeful stride away from the fence, towards the roof's edge.
Stop! Don't do it!
The man unflinchingly stepped out toward empty air.
No!
Hana sprang forward, somehow managing to grab hold of the stranger's wrist. He yanked the man back from the edge, getting only a blank stare in response.
Don't go wasting your life like this!
Ordinarily, Kana would have stayed and talked until he was sure this guy's death wish had passed. But there wasn't time for that right now. Maria was in just as much danger at that very moment. Whipping out his handcuffs, he shackled the man to the fence.
I promise I'll come back. Please just stay alive a few minutes longer, okay?
Kano left the man staring in bewilderment and raced back to the South Hill building. When he got back to the roof, no one was there. Kano immediately tried to call Tateno on his cell, but the call didn't go through. Tateno must have powered off his cell phone.
Damn it! Where'd you go, detective?
He needed to hear what Tateno had to say. He still had no idea what was really going on, or what the grim truth might be. And it seemed he had just lost his chance to find out. In desperation, Kano rushed from the building. But in his frantic search of the area, he saw no sign of either Tateno or Maria. Later, a precinct-wide manhunt failed to discover where the two had gone. From that day forward, Kano was an empty inside, carrying out his duties as a detective with bleak detachment.